Thank you.
Welcome back to The Things We Know. I'm Lisa Callahan.
And I'm Kari Morin.
And today is super fun and special because we are joined by our firstborns, the ones that made us moms, Peter Carroll and Liam Callahan, who both just happened to be visiting at the same time. And Kari had a brilliant idea. So tell us about it.
Well, yes, we were actually remarking that our oldest were going to be home at the same time, which is rarer and rarer these days. And so thank you for agreeing to this. They're both 21, so cheers. We're having a little
Liam went with water.
Happy hour here. And we've touched on this many times in this pod, right? That we're adjusting to big changes at this stage of our life with having kids grow up, move on, and then having adult relationships with them. And that it's probably a bigger deal to us than it is to you guys. I mean, we own that. We remember not thinking about that at all and noticing our parents get all wistful when we would come and go and we'd roll our eyes. But for us, like, this is really topical and neat that you guys would be willing to do this, because I think people would love to hear, we're talking about it all the time, but love to hear from your perspective, because they're thinking about their own kids, right? They're thinking about their own kids growing up and leaving, or having these long distance relationships with them. So thank you both.
Yeah. And I think, for me, we talk about Peter and Liam so much. I mean, I feel like we bring you guys up in almost every single episode in some way, shape, or form. And so I do feel like I've met Peter and you have met Liam, but this is sort of the first time they're meeting. And we keep having this vision that someday we'll all live close together and everybody can hang out and make music together.
Yes, that's true. I know we say that a lot about our Charlotte and Miles too, that they should meet as well. It's funny.
Do you want to do introductions?
Yeah. Yes. So seated next to me is my firstborn, Peter. And he is the one who made me a mom. And he is currently attending Tulane University in New Orleans, which is super fun for us because we used to live there. And he's about to leave for a semester abroad. So he's really home for a short time. And it is really hitting me this visit that he doesn't live here anymore, right? Like he comes for these weeks, we pack a lot in. We were exhausted last time, I think, where you were probably, because we plan so much, just to have him home. And he has friends here and people he wants to see. So, and when he comes back and goes back to school, he lives there, right? He lives there for the next couple of years and beyond, who knows? So he's an amazing older brother. He's a great son. He's great in all the roles that I know that he has, right? As a friend, a cousin, nephew, all of those things. He's always blown us away. Super curious, super passionate, but always questioning things in all the right ways. He's musical. He's well-read. He's funny as hell. And we agree, Brendan and I, all the time, and I've told you this, Lisa, so you can back me up, that you bring an energy and an excitement to this house when you're home that just isn't here when you're not here. So
thank you. Thank you.
Well, we were laughing because the script, you just said, and here's my intro to Liam, and there's just like ... So I was just going to sit here. All right, now let's talk about Liam.
So I almost wrote it because I love hearing you gush about Liam. I knew what you might say.
I know. I didn't want you to write it. No, we were just laughing. Yes. So Liam obviously is also my firstborn, made me a mom back in 2002. The thing about Liam is from the minute he was born, you hate this phrase, but I hear it. See, he's already shaking his head. He's an old soul, but not in the way of like, you used to hate that because it sets you up for some like responsibilities that you didn't really want to take on or whatever. But he's just always been very verbal, very communicative. When we would do play groups, he would want to talk to the moms. He didn't necessarily want to play with the kids. Same, super smart, super musical. He's going to be a senior at UCSD, so University of California, San Diego, in your degrees in studio arts. But he's a painter, he's a writer, he's a musician, he's a filmmaker. I once had a reading from a psychic, and she said that whatever Liam did whatever Liam eventually doesn't exist yet. And so I always hold on to like, I don't know what that is, and I guess we don't have to. But he's also an amazing big brother to Charlotte, always has been. And yeah. And I'm glad you're home too.
Yeah, we do actually already know what that thing that doesn't exist yet is.
Uh-oh.
Having IBS at 21.
No.
That was a medical mystery. That's not for the youth. So did it.
Hey, congratulations.
It was true.
Okay, if I'm not mistaken, you all three are firstborns.
Darren is not. No, Darren actually.
No, you two and Peter. So I'm
Oh,
surrounded.
yes.
with
Yes,
borns.
yes.
And you're all manifestors if
Right. In
people
human design.
think about human design. So woo.
Yeah. A lot of
And outnumbered.
energy.
Yeah, a lot of good energy. A lot of instigating, initiating kind of energy you guys all have. That's really cool.
All right, so let's ask you both. I feel like mine wasn't as good as Carrie's, but did your mom, Peter, give an accurate description of you? And then Liam, did I give an accurate description of you? But we'll let Peter go first.
I think so. A lot of those things are true. I don't live here anymore. I go to school at Tulane. As far as funny as hell, I guess that's pretty arbitrary. So that's up for the listener to decide. But I'd say otherwise, that's pretty accurate.
Anything surprise you about what she said about you?
No, not really.
He's like, she's always slapping her.
She is a great mom and gushes about me a lot. So I've heard these things.
She does in fact gush about you a lot. All right, how'd I do with you?
Well, being improvised, it was fantastic. But I just to kind of say what you were like kind of questioning about why I don't like that term old soul. I think it's because I understand that like as a description of me, and I understand like that's always been your perception of me, and honestly most of our family members' perception of me. Yep. So it's like it was not only mom that said that. I was told by that from extended family and so on and so forth my whole beginning of my life. But yeah, for me it's just that I think I realized that it made me feel less valid in my ability to learn as I grow, because I would be like, it may, it's, I think a dangerous thing to tell. It's a good thing to treat your kid like they're special. I think it's a dangerous thing to let them know that you think they're special sometimes, not always, but just because I think that made me think that some of the things I was going through was more unique than it was, which made it in my head a lot more like, I think that's where we get the kind of rebellious attitude. Is it's like, I'm sure there's so many kids that didn't present themselves in the way that I did, but had a similar level of emotional intelligence. They just weren't able to talk like I talk all the time. So I think that's probably why that phrase is kind of worn off on me over time. Is I'm like, no, it's like, especially as I get like older and I'm out of the house, it's like there's so many things I'm just like, yeah, I'm on the exact same page as like everybody else my age.
That makes sense. That's right. Thank you for reminding me why you didn't like it, because you straight up asked me to stop saying that about you at some point. But you're right. It made it sound like what you were going through was unique. And at that time in your life, especially, you probably needed to know that everybody was going through the same shit.
Well, it's like that meme that I showed you. It was like, stop calling your kids old souls when you just mean weird.
Oh, you just mean weird.
That's all you really mean.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm guilty of it. I'm sure Peter will tell you. In my family, it used to annoy me that everyone was seen as one thing, and then it was just repeated, and that was the lore about them, and it like giving nobody. And then people just sort of shrug their shoulders. Yep, I'm the I'm the one who knows about money, and I'm the one who is a cook or whatever. And so I get that, and also it's a long time before people really want to stand out as unique. I think in just kind of average development. I know I'm not speaking for everyone, but it's a long time before you want to be different.
I'm sorry, I have to ask. I thought you just said, I'm the one that's good with money. I'm the one that's a hooker.
I said, who likes to cook?
That's an unfamiliar family trope.
That's the same person. That's the same person.
Lucrative industry in this day and age.
Oh my gosh, I'm sorry.
Who likes to cook?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Fair. Oh, I just snorted. I haven't done that before.
Oh I want to ask about birth order, since I mentioned being firstborn. Why do you guys like being the oldest? Like the first to go out in the world, the first to have your parents cut their parenting teeth on you.
Well, I'm curious how Peter feels because you have three kids. So you have two siblings. I have one. So you had some other people come after. One other person came after the person after.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, I definitely noticed being the oldest compared to Miles, who's the youngest, who's 17. I noticed some parent fatigue from you guys, which it's not a whole lot, but it's kind of like the thing in high school where they're a little bit more like, And I put them through a lot, to be fair. So you guys are kind of ready to, be like, you don't let them get away with murder. But at the same time, an advantage that he has that I had is I have this relationship with you guys. I like to think where you'll ask me like, oh, this happened. How would you go about this? And I have this perspective as someone who went through high school and who was parented, being like, I think you guys should handle it this way, which sometimes, you listen, sometimes you don't, but it's kind of some perspective on how I would have liked to be treated and parented through high school. So it's nice for him that way. Some advantages that I had and that he didn't, going up through high school is I was the first one to get away with stuff. So now when he tries stuff I got caught for, they're like, oh, we've seen that before, which is a disadvantage for him. But I mean, I really like it. It's hard to say how I would have turned out if I wasn't the oldest, because there's no control group to see, like, to compare that to. So I feel like I've kind of filled the shoes of the oldest just naturally, because that's what's happened of the oldest. So I'm just kind of like, all right, I'm the one who goes to college first. I'm the one who does all these things first. And as imperfect parenting as it was when you guys were like, cutting your parenting teeth on us, it couldn't have been different. And it made me who I am today, which is what I'm very happy for. So overall, I've really enjoyed being the oldest, but then again, I know nothing else, but yeah.
Fair.
Yeah. I mean, I think the thing you said about kind of having that sort of like backup parenting, you feel like the backup parent after a while, especially once you hit, I feel like since I hit college in particular, because I had the retrospect, like I was able, that's an advantage of being 4 years away from Charlotte too. Yeah. It's like every time I leave a school, she's entering it. And so, especially with high school, it was like, I feel like that was way more of like what was that? And especially because Charlotte went to the same high school I went to. And like, all that sort of stuff made it very much a controlled experiment when it came to, well, what do you feel about this? But at the same time, me and Charlotte are while we're very similar, also very different, especially in how we handle high school. And, I have a sister, so there's that difference as well, like my experience versus hers. And so, I feel like that I definitely resonate with. But what was the initial question about? It was just about birth order.
Yeah, being the oldest. And
yeah, no, I think that Charlotte is interesting because I feel like we're very connected, but we're also very independent. Like as siblings, we absolutely adore each other and we get along and we always have, but we also have very singular lives and experiences while they also connect. So it's a little bit weird because, as I said, like you had two people that followed you and I just had this one. And so it's like,
and it was two boys versus a girl.
Yeah. And it's just like, it's interesting because there's not like a third variable, of like, what else could be pulled from mom and dad? What else can be, how would Charlotte interact? I mean, Charlotte is totally my mom in the social aspect, but I'm totally my mom in the sweat.
Sorry, that's there's things that I have unfortunately gened down to him, and sweating is one of them.
The anger
issues.
No, so
but he also got my good teeth. So
the teeth. So yeah, I think that's definitely a different experience because I feel like I maybe would have a better understanding of what being the oldest feels like if I knew,
I think there is one of the things I think is different for you is the fact that Charlotte is a girl, right? So unlike Peter, I can't go to Liam and say, what's she going through here, right? And so and even though you went to the same high school, you were in different schools, you were in visual arts, she's in theater, so even that experience is a little bit different. I think where I rely heavily on you, and I don't know if you do this so much, Kari, or not, is I rely on you to be the person she can go to when she doesn't want to come to Dad and I. And I don't think that's as big of a deal now, but it definitely was in middle school where she could go to him and share things that she wasn't willing to share with Dad and I. And he would sometimes tell us, and sometimes he would just handle it himself.
Yeah. Cause I've made it like a priority to like feel like Charlotte can trust me, you know. She also knows that if anything's so dangerous that she knows where I have to tell, you know. It's just like, it's like a therapist, you know, there's a certain extent a therapist legally has to report it.
Right.
So does a sibling. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I guess I'll answer first to that, but you might have a different answer. I don't rely on Peter. I will tip him off sometimes, but they have their own, and I'm really thinking of Miles here because they both have a very similar but also their own relationship with Griffin, and they check in with him differently, and they both really, I think I told you a long time ago I got a reading with a numerologist who saw Miles and Peter as bookends, almost like as the guardians. Like they have their own lives, the world's waiting for them, they have all these things they're here to contribute and do in the world, but for this time while they're growing up, there's guardians and his soul. And we didn't even know what was unfolding for him yet. My kids were little, so it didn't totally land for me at the time, but things that she said about them being musical, him being good with money, but like just also just being really mathy and numbers oriented, a lot of that stuff has turned out to be true. So it's kind of interesting. I mean, I always take all that stuff with a fun, entertaining grain of salt. But when it comes to Peter and Miles, I do tip him off sometimes because Peter's, he's away at college, he's having his own life, and they're boys. And to make a slight stereotype, at least, they're not constantly in contact, but when they are, it's awesome. Like if Peter calls home and he has time, they will take the phone in the other room, the three boys, and visit. Or Peter will just reach out to him like, hey, I'm in this musical, I forget what the class was, that you guys would connect about that and kind of take him through stuff. So they have their own thing, and I just kind of trust and hope that that's what happens.
Yeah. Love that. So part of this was about adulting, now that you're both out of the house. I mean, geez, Peter, you're going across the world here in very short order. By the time this lands, you'll be solidly in New Zealand because this won't come out for a couple of months. But I'm curious around, I texted Kari this morning. I said, one of the things that is fascinating to me about you two is, or just your generation in general, you were born under the cloud, so to speak, of 9/11, right? Liam, I was newly pregnant with Liam. I didn't even know I was pregnant with 9/11. Then you grow up and you're in, nothing different than war and shooter drills. This is sounding super depressing. And then you move into COVID, right? And yet I feel like every kid I know that's your guys' age, obviously that's informed you, but it's also made you, I have a lot of hope for you all because I feel like you've been through hell and back. And so how does that, Peter, how does that land for you? Like, what do you think about the way your life has unfolded completely out of your control? And how does that inform you?
Well, as far as the war and shooter drill thing, like, to be frank, I'm a little desensitized to the shooter drill at this point. There's a really good South Park episode that puts it pretty well, where like this mom's freaking out about, how everyone's not caring about the shooter drills. Like, oh, she just has menopause, which maybe that's not a funny joke for this podcast.
It's funny. It's perfect.
Yeah. But it's, as sad as it is, it's like, right. Like, we live with this. Another one happens. Like, all right. In terms of war, like, again, a little desensitized. Like, I remember going over that in government class, like I've never lived like a year, maybe when I was really young, without seeing war. And I'm like, well, it doesn't feel that way.
Right.
But as far as COVID, you said like living life as things unfold out of my control. I feel like that's kind of life in general. Like there's going to be so many things you can't control. And COVID was rough for a lot of kids in my class, at least graduating during COVID. A lot of people changed. I grew apart from some friends, grew closer to others. It affected people in a lot of different ways. Personally, it was, I don't want to say good for me, but in the sense that I couldn't control it, I was like, all right, school's canceled. I can't do a lot of things now, but I was able to kind of I was too stressed at the time. It was able to like de-stress me. Kind of took a gap year because of it. I kind of reoriented my life and direction around it. And it was kind of a reminder that a lot of the things we stress ourselves out with are kind of bullshit. Like I was like, oh, all these things I was doing and signing up for weren't necessary. And it's not that they were, bullshit, but it was just like the ability to, like, when you're too stressed, you're doing it to yourself. The world's not making you sign up for all these things and doing that. So COVID was a good reminder of that for me. And it's now that I'm living past COVID, it's a good reminder that enjoy the time you have right now, because you don't know what's normal and you don't know what can be taken away from you. And also, I don't know, I guess that's kind of what I take away from it.
Yeah, that's awesome. What about you?
Yeah, I think I very much resonate with like Peter's sentiment. I think that kind of starting off where he started and where the question started, for me, school shootings very similarly are desensitized. I think that honestly, the biggest impact it's had on me post being in high school in particular, where it's way more common, is that now planning my career, I find myself planning around places where school shootings would not happen or shootings would not happen. I don't love that I work in a mall. I don't love that, Irina works at a preschool, and Irina didn't want to be a full-on teacher because not only because of the wages, but also because that comes with, it's like being a soldier at this point, which it should never be. And, going into like the war and stuff, the thing is never once in my life has the war been here, So it's always been that another country is the victim of another country. It's never, and in many cases, the part that's affecting is that they can sometimes, especially in our experience in our time growing up, the wars were the US's fault. Like Iraq and stuff. So it's like we were the problem, and we had the privilege of not having to experience what actual war is like at all. And so it is something that is completely distant. And I feel like it's honestly, that's probably the most through line of any generation right now is war, because that's how it's been for ages, where everybody lives through their war. And so that's to me resonates way less as a generational thing in the way that school shootings do. But when it came to COVID was obviously completely unorthodox and completely unforeseen. And I think that at the time it was a massive struggle, as it was to everybody in their own unique ways. And I will not say that I am one that struggled more than others. Like, in fact, I think I came out pretty unscathed outside of my own personal issues during that time, which I think is what everybody universally experienced. Some people experienced way worse. But because I didn't, and it's the outcome of it was mostly from my own, personal struggles during that time, it's very similar to what you said, which is that it forced everybody to have to take a step back. And I can't say that it kind of did the opposite for me, because while I did not like high school while I was in it, it became pretty clear that while the first couple of weeks were like, oh, no school, like we're getting, whatever. And at that point we knew we weren't sure when we were coming back, but like after those first 2 weeks, it wasn't de-stressing for me anymore. Like it became a new form of stress, and one that I had never had to face before because it was completely alien. And so, I think because of that, I'm sure there's lots of people that are still recovering from everything that happened during that time. That will be happening for decades, I have a feeling. And so, but for me, I agree with you. It was like, my experience is very similar, where it's like everything that was bothering me up until that time kind of came into this explosive thing towards the midpoint. And then by the time I moved out, it like totally everything shifted. Like moving out for me was definitely a bookmark in that chapter, 100%.
Yeah,
that's perfect segue. Oh, did you want to say something?
Oh yeah, you were class of 2021?
2020.
Oh, 2020. Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
So you both, yeah. That's really
Yeah. So both cut off graduations. Like that was the other part of it is like high school in the grand scheme of thing. I get it. It's a footnote on your life, but life thus far, it is really weird to have a very major experience be cut off super suddenly, especially from somebody who had moved halfway through that experience. So it already had gotten cut off.
We moved
once.
from Chicago. So his freshman year was in Chicago. Then we move out here and he doesn't even get to complete his senior year.
So yeah, it's like that's a particularly weird experience too. Is like, and I think a lot of kids could relate to that because it was like, what, like that's a big milestone, and all of a sudden it's gone, and you didn't even know what it was supposed to be like. Yeah, so it's weird.
I completely agree because I'm really someone who likes to, when I'm leaving a place or ending a chapter, kind of be there and be like, wow, this is my last this is my last my last time looking at this. And it felt weird to make that transition and like, end that part of my life without having that final. So I kind of had a little precognition about being like, this might be my last time here, but didn't feel like closure. But also,
not at all.
I feel like I didn't miss prom. I didn't miss graduation. I missed like my math teacher. I missed walking to the car with my friends, eating like food after school. It was interesting that the things that I wished or felt like I was missing out on, but
yeah,
really interesting perspective.
Also, just that time of year for a senior when you're not in the grind of applying to places is like the best part of senior year where you get to just chill. But you remarked on that. You're like, this was the time we were all just going to be, kind of hanging and coasting. And they didn't get to have that.
Well, that was honestly even, I don't know if you felt this at all, Peter, but like it was the time to chill. But at the same time, I remember so vividly feeling like, you know what, senior year is almost over. And then next chapter, baby, I'm ready. I'm ready to experience something new. And then it literally paused for like 2 years. And it was so weird. And that's, I think, why moving out felt so substantial, is because that was really the play button being hit again, even though it was not completely over when I moved out. So, yeah.
Yeah. Peter, you took a gap year. Liam went to community college. So his whole freshman year was in his bedroom. So he graduates from his bedroom and his freshman year is from his bedroom, So, yeah.
Because at least I was able to have, like, after my gap year, it felt like my gap year was a whole pause button. And I did a lot of productive stuff and I had a great time. But when I went to college, I'm like, all right, I'm hitting play again.
Yeah.
Came with his own set of challenges. I forgot math and how to study, but it was a nice, like, my gap year was like, all right, this is still on pause. I'm here now I'm ready to go again.
That's awesome.
Okay, so that segued, something you said was about to segue into, you both moved away, and even though your presence is so welcome and desired and we love it when you come home, we're curious what it's like to come home to a place you don't live anymore, or you don't feel like you have the same room. You haven't officially moved out, but you kind of acknowledged that when I picked you up in New Orleans. Like, I kind of live here now because you are paying rent in New Orleans. So what's that like to come home to a place that isn't, and I know it's not the same place that you had before you moved out. So
yeah,
I go first this time.
Yeah, you're right. It's a little weird because they empty nested so fast. They were like, I'm fucking out of here. I don't want to think about it ever again. His scent still roams the halls. And I dipped. But like in reality, like they didn't leave that soon after. Like it was
a year.
Was it a year? I was kind of trying to think about that. I was trying to think about when you guys moved here.
Liam moved out in the morning and Charlotte already had his bedroom completely redone by the evening. So yeah, it was pretty much like, don't let the door hit you in the ass.
Yeah, it was real fast. And so I had a particularly kind of interesting experience because I initially moved out with a roommate. So that period of time, having a roommate was a little bit different than what I feel like living by my own feels like now, because just living with Irina, who's my girlfriend, feels much more like what I anticipated, just like the experience of being comfortable and moved out should feel like. And that was pretty much the case because, like, details aside, like just having a roommate period, especially if it's 3 people and 2 are in a relationship, it changes the way a house works. And it was very fast and unfamiliar. And so I think that by the time, things settled down and it was just me and Irina, it became very clear that like we were fully comfortable, you know, and it felt like returning home, even though you'd been at the Apex or Da Vinci, even it was, you know, it felt very smooth. I never felt like I came back and was like, like just it's too much. No,
but it was funny because he bought his ticket to go back to San Diego, and he said, I bought my ticket to come home. And I was like, and I thought he meant here, and he meant San Diego. And I was like, because for me, I mean, I lived in Dayton and I lived in Chicago and I lived in LA, and no matter where I'm going, I always say I'm going home. So when I go to Chicago, I'm going home. When I go to Dayton, I'm going home. And when I come to LA, I'm going home. So I was literally like, wait, what?
It's also such a good thing too. I love that. I mean, it's a good thing that you feel home where you live. So great.
Yeah.
I probably say it too much just to get myself used to it.
Oh, at this point, it's great. I feel like a celebrity coming back and like my dogs, my people, and walk through that door. And it's like
a standing ovation. Everybody just yells your name.
Yeah, my dogs are all like that.
Oh, you meant your little dogs, not like your family's.
Yeah, he doesn't call us his dogs.
Oh, okay.
I mean my dogs. They're my biggest fans.
I see. I got confused. I was like,
my dogs. Yeah, my mom. But it's kind of like a vacation home at this point. Like I come here and everything's where I know it's going to be. It's really nice, although, you know, we're going to get remodels. When I come home from New Zealand, it might be like, whoa, where am I? But coming back freshman year was weird. I remember Thanksgiving break and Christmas break, I came back and I think my room was still my room, which I think as soon as my room went to Griffin, I think that was the moment where I'm like, this isn't my home anymore. And it'll always be a home, but it's not like my home. And
if that applied to me, it would have been over immediately.
Yeah. Well, it's nice.
Although you sleep on an air mattress in the kitchen now. So, I mean.
I don't know. It doesn't have to be my home. It's a different role in my life now. And it can't be my home forever. So it's just something else now. But it's nice.
So let's talk about having this adult relationship with your parents. I remember, you know, when Kari and I were talking about this, I remember how fun it didn't happen at 21 by any means, but as I got older and my mom and my stepdad would like go out with us, whatever, it was so fun to go out and have dinner, just like two couples, and then go out to a bar afterwards and have drinks. So I guess how do you like having what is your adult relationship like with your parents? And I'll let Peter go first this time. And what do you like about it and what feels weird?
It's great. I love this new part of the relationship with my parents. Like, at least when I'm home, it's kind of like we had to go through this transition period where I wouldn't come home at 4 a.m. in high school because I would get in trouble. And so then once that didn't happen, I'm like, oh, I can't get in trouble. What are they going to do? Ground me? I'm going to college. I would come home, I'd wake my mom up and keep her up. And I kind of had to be like, oh, I can't do that because I respect my parents. I want a good relationship. So now it's not like there's not this like looming trouble over me. So I do stuff and I follow rules because I want to respect you guys. And it's past that, you know, teenage period where I'm not doing stuff to get in trouble. But it's nice. We're really communicative when I'm at school. I will call you for a lot of stuff and you'll call me. And if I don't call you, you'll call me and get me on the phone. But it's great to come home. I don't know. We have a lot of plans. Maybe Liam, you go, and I have more to say. I'm just not there. I'm trying to say.
Yeah, well, I've always been an old soul, so it's been like talking to people my age my whole life. There's been no change and no respect. Come in, just like throw things everywhere and leave the place a wreck. But yeah, that's my answer.
Oh, shut up.
I was going to say, I think it's very possible he and Miles have figured out the quieter stairs to step on, and because nobody's been waking us up, or I'm just that sleep deprived, but nobody's.
I mean, it is weird. I remember, literally up until my mom passed away, when we'd go home and stay at her house, I would go out. Darren and I would go out. We had one set of couples friends that lived in Ohio, and we would go out with them. And my mom would be like, when are you coming home? I'm like, I don't really know. Well, when are you coming, and then she would stay awake until we got home. And I'm at this point a 50-year-old woman, and she's 70, but she would stay awake. I have never done that, but I will say Liam and Irina went out the other night, and I woke up and I was like, are they home yet? I don't know if they're home yet. I like kind of got out of bed and went peeked to see if the door was closed. So there is that, you never give up that sense of fear maybe, or just care,
Yeah, once again, it's a little bit interesting too, because even in high school, like going out like that's Charlotte's thing.
True.
Charlotte is that kid. Charlotte's the super social one, and I'm not saying like I'm some fucking loner or something. I'm just saying like I have my preferences for what I like to do. And even when we went out the other night, it was to celebrate our belated 21st birthdays with a bunch of her older coworkers from the past. And we stayed out till like 1 a.m, and we went to 3 bars, and we got to the 3rd one, and I was like, yep, I'm done. I'm not I have people that have, everybody in my life that I know is turning 21 that's my age right now. And so I'm seeing different people experience being 21 differently. And mostly that revolves around alcohol. And I just like, she brought up the water that I was drinking, and it's because she was like, we always have an alcoholic beverage. You got to bring one. And I was like, I'm drank out. Like, I was like,
I drank him under the table yesterday.
It's like, I took Pepto-Bismol last night. I'm done.
See, you're an old soul.
That was me last weekend, Liam. I'm just kidding.
I mean, it is my brand at this point.
I was looking for Pepto-Bismol, wasn't I?
You are, yes.
Funny. Your 21st birthday was awesome. I loved it.
Yeah, my 21st birthday was awesome. My amazing, wonderful parents bought me a keg for my 21st birthday, and we put it at second base on a baseball field and played a game of kickball. And then, yeah, no, it was a blast.
The same place that he played Little League.
Full circle.
Nice.
Yeah. But I think like I know you've thrown around old soul a lot. You have called me an old soul, and we've had a more or less adult relationship for a while. So once I've moved out, it hasn't really changed a whole lot. It's just now sometimes our hanging out more often, we'll have a drink in front of us than we did when I was 18.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's very true. I think that we've always I feel like that's another big thing about moving out. I think honestly, if I was to say what has surprised me the most about moving out is I feel like I don't call them as frequently as I thought I would. And it's partially because I'm very busy, and, my schedule is kind of all over the place, and so is theirs. And specifically I feel like more so with Charlotte, like handling Charlotte, and, she's going places, so they're not always at home, and so on and so forth. And when they are at home, I'm at work, and blah, blah, blah. But like, I grew up and mom called her mom every weekend, and I plan on doing that at some point. It's not like I don't plan on doing that. I think it's partially because we're still not that far away from each other.
Right.
And it's not like, Irina's mom calls her like every other day, but their conversations are like 5 minutes long, where, our conversations are like an hour. So it's like, it's kind of the same deal, but it's just like longer spans of time.
Yeah. I remember when you moved out, you were like, I'm going to call you every day. And in my head, I was like, no, you're not. And I was right.
I don't know what it would have been like with my parents if we had texting, but I think you're an amazing texter. And so we don't talk as often as like Peter will just kind of, Miles said when Peter left, should we take him off should we do a different family chat? Because he doesn't need to see this stuff. And I'm like, I think he thinks it's funny. I hope you do. I don't know if you do. But like, if he sees that we're getting food, he's like, cheeseburger fry. Like he'll just say this from New Orleans. Like he'll just kind of chime in. So yeah. It makes us feel like he's part of things. We will do goofy things like that, like putting a picture of him in a chair or something. And
that's cute.
I'll crop myself into photos because they'll have a great family photo, and I'm like, I gotta be in that. So I'll be at a bar, take a selfie, take my face, put it in the photo, and I'm like, I like this one better.
I will say we do have separate threads. So we have the family thread, which is the 4 of us. Sorry. we have smaller family because it's mostly around Charlotte. And I figure you don't, that could get blown up. And then we have bigger family, which includes Irina.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
So
Something that moving out has done for me too is given me an immense appreciation for all you did when I was younger. Because now, like, I know you've touched on adulting. I got all this stuff to take care of. You still do a lot for me, like, especially going abroad. You're like, you need to do this with your card, this with your phone company. And I'm like, all right, I can take care of that. But it's still a lot. And I was thinking back to the days before I was like 16 and could drive. And I'd be like, hey, mom, I have 4 baseball practices an hour away every day this week. You have to figure out how to get me there, feed me, do my, like, I mean, I wouldn't say all this, but you had 3 kids and you were doing all these things. And like, God, that sounds hard. I can't even do that for myself.
yeah, no, I completely agree. And especially because I remember there was one time I came back and it was when you were still at the Da Vinci. So I remember Charlotte, who's a vegetarian, she's very picky about what we get. And we were ordering food and Charlotte was like, they were like, what do you think about this place? Charlotte's like, no, I don't want that place. What do you think about this place? No, I don't want that place. Well, you should find a place and we'll get something from it. She's like, why do I have to choose? And I'm like, I was literally like, I think I like shouted at her. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, they're buying you food. Do you know how expensive this is? Like, just because like it got to a point where I was just like, there's definitely.
I think you yelled at her. You are so ungrateful.
Yeah, which I never do. It was just like, it was pretty, I feel like pretty fresh into moving out that I was like, this is crazy. Like, this is so pricey,
Well, that's a good question. This isn't here, but I'm curious, Peter, for you, I kind of know what Liam's answer is, but if Liam's very curious around the dynamic now that he's gone of the 3 of us. Do you see a different dynamic with the 4 of them? What now that you kind of swoop in and you're out? Like, is there something that you don't that's new to you or that you didn't notice growing up?
Well, I don't know their dynamic when I'm gone. And I feel like when I'm here, it's just the same dynamic as before. Okay. Although like sometimes like something will pop up, like today it'll be like an inside joke between my brother and my mom, and I'm like, like I don't know this. I feel like I would know this if I was here, and I don't. But it's really weird to see them like at family trips or doing something as a family as they should without me, because like I would have been there, or I've been there for years. And I remember we have people on the younger side of my cousins, or on one side, and the younger side of our family friend group. And when we would go on those kind of trips and do those kind of activities, and older people would be gone, I'm like, this is weird. They're gone. This is a little bit of a different dynamic. And now I'm that person who's gone. And that's what's weird to me, is seeing like them doing something I totally would be at and I'm not there.
No.
And I'm always curious if they're like, oh, Peter would be making this better. Or they're like, this is great. Like, this is awesome. This is nothing new.
Yeah.
You want to add?
No, honestly, the biggest difference there for me is that I definitely feel the dynamic change, and I don't know why that is. Maybe I think once again, got kind of going full circle here a bit about COVID, is that I do think because I moved out at the very end of it, and I got my first job and I was out of the house for the first time and like doing like all these adult milestones all at the same time, my life picked up like crazy. And COVID and quarantine continued for a lot of people who didn't have that. All of a sudden you're working at a store with a mask and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, all of a sudden real life sort of re-engages. And so like, I feel like you guys almost went longer in quarantine than I did. Mm-hmm. And so I still kind of feel the repercussions of that now with, dad now only working online and, you working strictly you've always worked over Zoom. I knew about Zoom before the world did because of you. And so it's like, but like it got way more intensive and like became only that. And so I definitely think that the fact that the 3 of them have been together in one house that is now smaller than our last place, by not a lot, but it's like one solid floor. True. It's not a loft or whatever. So, everybody's in their own quarters. And I think that there's times where I feel that tension. I'm like, they are ready to leave the house. And I think that's part of what I feel about coming back, is that everybody seems a little bit happy to have a reason to go do new things or show me something that they didn't get to show me before. because they're like, it's like something new, you know. I mean, we're all looking for something new. And I know that's kind of part of what the podcast is about is, you know, later in life, and specifically as women, trying to figure out what that new thing is or what you want to do with it. And I think that in the case of being the child to the women we know, is that it's a very similar thing where it's like you go back and you see that dynamic and you're like, wow, like they want to kill each other. No, it's just a lot. It's a lot different. I don't know. Yeah. It's just a lot different. And I don't know if that's because I left or it's because
I think that's
COVID
I think that's a really good point, that we're all at home all the time.
Yeah, it's weird. It's not like, I mean, you went out with me and Charlotte in the past, but now that's another thing about empty nesting is that like they've joked they feel like an empty nester already, like an actual empty nester, because Charlotte is way more the person to go out than I ever was. And I sometimes wonder if they would always give me crap for, you know, you're never around. I was. And I think they're really feeling that now that Charlotte is genuinely never around.
True.
Yeah, I think that is the function of 2 versus 3. It's still, we still have a lot of, you know, we still have 2 years with Miles, and
yeah.
I didn't mean to jump on anything you were going to say, but
I was going to say
that, Liam, you keep bringing up something that's like perfect. Like you keep just teeing up my next question. One thing I know about you, Liam, and it's true about Peter. I don't know if you guys have ever heard the term soiling the nest. Have you ever heard that term?
I think so.
This is what is like the term for what a lot of kids do, not every kid, before they go to college. A lot of our friends have complained about, whoa, she's impossible or he's impossible to live with. Get really, really combative in their, like before they leave. And in psychology, it's about, I have to make you wrong and less significant, so it's less scary to go out in the world. And neither of you seem to do that. But, and I don't know if Lisa will agree with me on this, so I'm not going to take Lisa with me on this one. What I'm really seeing with your and Miles's references and inside jokes and just like the brilliant things you both are doing in your academic world and in the world, like I'm really clear, even in high school, probably even before high school, there's, you know, I remember this with my parents, like we're wise, we have a lot of years and there's things like we know, but obviously that's what this is called, but you guys know a lot. You have a lot more knowledge than we do right now about pop culture, but also about really important things. So what is that like, that adjustment to realizing you know more than us?
Product of being an old soul.
There you go.
That's the third callback. I think it's a comedian that you're only allowed to do that 3 times.
It's not funny the 4th time. Yeah, I mean, I think it's about navigating dynamics once again and trying to not, you know, we were just having a conversation about something similar to this in the pool the other day, that it's when it comes to the pop culture side of things, it's actually really funny because I try to teach them a new pop culture thing every time I come down.
Well, I saw you teaching your dad the
gritty.
The gritty.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is it's like, it's outdated to me. I just like teaching it to be outdated. So they're not even on the trends. I'm teaching them old stuff, but they're just catching on to it. So it's kind of like messing with their heads. But so the pop culture thing is kind of just fun because it gives a good thing to talk about and catch up on. But when it comes to like social awareness and stuff, I think it's about like, there's always going to be a generational gap, and that's fine. And if I feel like both sides recognize that the way the other person's feeling is totally valid, and that conversations are the best way to conduct learning and teaching. You know, the thing is, as I said, I'm not an old soul. I don't know everything. And I think that there's times, especially with the access to certain information that we have versus the access to certain information you have had your whole life, it can seem like we are jumping ahead of what we really know, you know? And I think that sometimes we are, because I think that's very common for younger people, is that wisdom comes with years, but knowledge comes earlier, you know, because you're in these sort of environments where it's always being fostered, whether it's school or your friends, or you're really dialed into whatever's going on in the world. And so, but that doesn't mean that those two things have to fight, you know. You guys have experienced so much more. And so I think that it's a product of, the best case scenario is conversation, learning, and going forward from there, you know?
Yeah, I feel like a little adjacent is what I'll say a lot is I feel like a key part of maturing is realizing your parents are imperfect, which is, it feels like it's something necessary because when you're younger, you're like, my parents can do no wrong. At least that's what I thought. And then you kind of go through this like stage, I think preteens, early teens, where it's like, my parents were right about nothing. And then hopefully I did, you come around and you're like, my parents aren't right about a lot, but they are right about a lot. And that means that things they're right about they're so right about. And there's like that kind of the second wave of understanding I've had where my mom will be saying the same like life lesson or thing. I can't think of one right now over and over again. It's kind of about something and I'll hear it a ton, but then like kind of like I'll hear it and it'll apply to something in my life and I'll be like, oh, wow, like that's so right. Even though I've heard like, there's a difference between hearing it and understanding it.
Yeah.
So it doesn't feel to me like I know more than you. It feels like I know a very different thing than you. I know a lot of different things and you know a lot of different things. And I feel like we've had a lot of conversations where you are on this side of the internet reading these articles and you will bring this knowledge to me and I will bring something else. And it won't be like, I know more than you. I'm in university, I'm reading. It's like we're comparing like, what what I know. So it doesn't feel like I know more than you. I mean, as far as media goes, you will show us memes I saw 2 months ago. And I'll have to smile and like
because on the
they have their own category of memes.
Old ladies. Yeah.
Yeah, it goes Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and by the time it hits Facebook, I'm like, oh, the mom sees it. I'm like, oh, I saw that on Twitter. Like, come on.
Yeah, it's like those things age real fast. Memes are any sort of like internet content is in and out, and so that's why.
But it gets to us like 2 months later on the Instagram, and we're like, oh, this is funny. I'll send it to the family chat, and they're probably like, oh my god.
Yeah, the nice thing is Liam's kind about it. Charlotte's like, Mom.
Yeah, that's good. Should we get to the song? We are just.
Well, I like these last two questions. Can we still do these last two?
Sure.
Okay, so one is, what's something you've learned? I'll ask them both, and you can answer them at the same time. One is, what's something you've learned from your mom that has been helpful? And is there anything you want us to ask your dads to be more aware of? The second one might be dangerous.
They said at the same time. 1, 2, 3. Yeah,
you said same time.
For me, it was that.
I don't know if it's gonna work.
You did write that question. Anything you'd like to ask us? And I said it wrong. The second question was anything you'd like to ask us and your dads to be more aware of. No, that's
your
right.
parents, not like go. It's like let's go talk to your dad. I think I meant like your parents to be more aware of.
There you go. But the first thing is what did you learn from us that was helpful? But Peter, I'll let you go first.
Ooh, can I not? I have to think.
Yes, Liam.
Pass now. Off the top of my head,
seriously?
Yeah, I know. It's just like it's on. I gotta think of it because
I'm thinking because my mom has taught me so much that I want to make sure I think good, not like eat vegetables. Like,
yeah.
I don't want that. I don't want to come on your podcast and be like, "Oh, the best thing my mom has ever taught me was this thing."
Yeah, I also wanted to apply to us moving out because I feel like I've learned so many things in communication with like moving out, and it's a lot to. I mean, the basic answer, I guess, is just me and Irina we were going through the nostalgia box the other day because they're clearing out their storage, and we found this like ridiculous note that I was gonna write as like a rebellion to my principal at the time, and Irina was like, I don't even know what I would do if I was a parent and I saw my son like write that note. It's so like painfully like stubborn and like, I feel like I would be like, no, none of that. And I was like, the thing is that the reason I think that I'm able to, I don't know, there's something about that I'm like, I feel like you guys are always very good at like knowing where to inform me and where to kind of like, because I feel like a lot of those things, a lot of that sort of like willingness to stand up for myself and all that stuff. Like, you didn't want to completely shut that down. You just knew that it needed to be tampered and that it could, you know, in the future be useful. It just had to be molded. And I feel like that's kind of the approach you guys took to a lot of things. Like in that like little thing that you posted to the Instagram page or whatever for the pod, where you asked something kind of similar. I said that like the communication side of things that we're so all good at now really came around the time that mental health issues became more prevalent in the mainstream. And even though all of a sudden I'm talking to my parents and saying, I think I have depression, I think I have anxiety, and they're putting me in therapy now, and there's just like new things going on. Never once did I think, man, I didn't have this when I was a kid. To like all this, it was like just a very different way of doing it. My parents have always been communicative and have always been some like degree of like knowing where to push my ambitions and where to reel them back in. And I think that has helped greatly with moving out, is that I think that I didn't think I was prepared to handle myself maturely in the world yet when I all of a sudden had to, but it made it very clear pretty fast that the way that I was raised made it way easier to transition into that than I thought it would be, you know?
Love that.
I'm kind of doing like a 2-part answer. The first thing is like my mom has taught me, and the second one is like she's kind of instilled in me. But the thing she's taught me is a lot about people. And some of that I think comes naturally because I am her son. I come from her genes. But my mom, I feel like understands and knows people so well, which like I understood a lot in high school when I would tell her about something going on, and she'd be like, I think it's this with this person. I'd be like, no, it's not that. And she would be right. More times than not, she would be right. I'm like, how did you know that? She's like, oh, it makes sense. And it comes from a place of empathy. Like you can empathize with a lot of people. And I feel like being your son and talking about that, and every time something happens and I tell you about it, you're telling me about something that happens. Otherwise, you're like, they have this going on. It could be this. And I feel like that's something I've really learned with other people. It's helped my relationships a lot, is I'm able to forgive a lot. And like, you know, where other people will be like, this person, this is messed up. And I'm like, hey, like maybe they're stressed. This was going on. And it's helped my relationships a lot. It's helped me a lot kind of be more confident, because it's twofold. It's like when someone's being a dick, it's like, I will tell you about that. And they're like, they're having a bad day. Probably. It's not about you. Like no one's ever intentionally mean to you. It's helped me be a lot less insecure and a lot more like self-aware. It's something you've taught me a lot of, and it's something you continue to do. And, you know, I'll continue to kind of forget about that and bring it to you, and you'll be like, hey, this is going on. That's been super helpful. The second thing I feel like you've instilled in me is kind of, I don't really know how to describe it, but it's a little bit like this, it's okay and perspective attitude. I feel like it's this kind of thing that we have mutually at this point too, because, you know, something like COVID or something like with Griffin and his epilepsy that we see a lot, it puts a lot of things in perspective. Where something bad happens, I'm not thinking like, you know, a test that I do poorly on in perspective is not nearly as serious as a global pandemic or someone being in the hospital, and it really helps. Like we both know when, like, you know, it's not like we have all these problems. It's like, like they'll be fine. Like we both know how to get stuff done, and both know like, okay, this is a pressing issue. Let's solve it without being stressed about it. But my motto, I wouldn't say my motto, but something kind of a mantra I live by is it'll probably be fine. Sort of because I would just say that to everything that you said to me, like, you know, before college, like, hey, it'll work itself out. And, you know, maybe I was a little too lackadaisical with that, but I think it's kind of something we remind each other of a lot, of like, you'll be stressed about something. I'm like, it's okay. Perspective, it's okay. And I'll be stressed about something and you'll do the same thing. But I feel like that comes from you, and you've always supported me in that when I've been stressed about something, to being like, Peter, like, get on your shit. You're like, hey, think about every time I'm stressed, you're like always helping me put it in perspective. And that's something you've taught me and instilled in me.
And then you bring that back to me.
Yes.
Yeah,
and you've done it so well that I'll bring it back to you.
It really helps.
I love that.
Another reason to miss him, because sometimes he's the one who can come in. And I've said this about I think I've told this to you. They're all very thoughtful, and your kids are too. Like you're all emotionally mature in very different ways. Like Miles is like big with the hugs, generous with the hugs, and so like, I love you, mama. And Griffin will be like, how was your day? And Peter could walk through the room and then he'll come back in and go, what's up? And I'm like, nothing. He's like, what's up? He's kind of like the positive, like, let's like keep going. Let's kind of keep the eye on the prize. Remember, we're okay. But then he will stop and be like, I know you're not okay. It's me. And it's just that, that beautiful gift that, like, I don't take any credit for that. I think that's you, but I appreciate you being appreciative.
Well, I learned that from you because you do that a lot. It pissed me off sometimes. There'd be something I'll be pissed off about, didn't want to talk about. Like, Peter, I know you're not okay. You can either talk about it right now or be pissed off and talk about it later. Talk about it later. I'm fine.
I'm fine. It's fine. Everything's fine.
Yeah.
I love that. That's a great reflection. Yes. And yours is, you're right. You were talking about the Instagram reel we did when we talked about what's changed in our relationship.
Yeah. Because I was talking about the two different things that, like, I feel like I didn't even register. And that's something I didn't register until he moved out, is that I was like, oh, well, we've always had the same relationship, but it's just become a lot more vocal as times have changed. And, it just, I think it grew from there. It got better, but I never felt like I didn't have that when I was a kid. None of us knew how to phrase it or how to talk about it,
I'm so moved by both of you, and there's so much I would like to say. Maybe we'll bring you guys back another time, but we should probably move into the song.
Yeah, no, we can move into the song since I screwed up that last question anyway. It didn't make sense. All right.
Oh, wait, don't I gotta say what I want my dad to know about me?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you're allowed to if you want, but you say the afterwards.
He's in the other room. Dad, come here.
Yeah.
All right, so Liam picked two songs, one's serious and one's funny. So maybe, Peter, if you have a song, we'll do the serious, and then Liam can end on the final one because it feels appropriate for both of you. Does that sound good?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a song?
Yeah, I have a song.
Okay, so Liam, you want to do your first song, tell it who it is and anything you want to say about it.
So the lyric I chose from the first song is a song by Porter Robinson called Mother. And the lyric I chose is, I'm on your side for the rest of your life. You'll never be alone. Don't you worry, my child. And now there's an empty room you outgrew, but I'm here for you. Oh. And so I said, what I really said is there's not one serious one funny one. It was more like one to make her cry and one to make her laugh, which is kind of the point of, I remember I sent you this song because I was like listening to this record a lot more. And I was like, man, this record has a lot of really beautiful sentiments in it. And this one totally reminds me of my mom. And she just replied, crying right now. Something like actually crying on the patio. So, yeah. But yeah.
So that's the first one. Peter, would you like to go?
Yeah, I had a few songs I couldn't really decide because I wanted to make sure that the mark I left was good and it wasn't a norm chorus song everyone would know. But I think as I've been talking, one of the songs that popped into my head, I don't know if you know it, that's Passing Through by Leonard Cohen live. Ooh. Yeah, that one's good. And I think I brought it up because, I like it a lot. And my roommate told me about it because he had a lot of great conversations with my roommates this year. And he was like, wow, we really are just all passing through on this earth. And he's like, this song puts it perfectly, and then gave it to me. I'm like, wow, this song does put it perfectly. But the verses, the chorus is kind of just like, we're all travelers in this land that's not ours. But the verses are like, he's talking to Adam in the garden, talking to FDR about the war. And it's all just like, hey, these are all humans. And I think that pertains to the empathy that we were talking about that you're so good at.
Mm. Yeah, that's a good one. And then this final one.
Yeah. There's no other lyrics in this song that I particularly relate to. But it's Bo Burnham song called FaceTime with My Mom, which is a particularly moving out sentiment. Pour me a drink and clear my schedule. I'm a FaceTime with my mom tonight. These 40 minutes are essential. I'm a FaceTime with my mom tonight. So yeah, but remember I said that's only going to be 40 minutes once a week. So.
Yeah, we do that once a week.
It will be more. I promise.
Yeah.
I think what I've learned, again, back to the human design, like waiting for the invitation, that is the best advice I've ever been given as a mom, is let him come to you, and when Peter has time to talk, he'll really, share. But if I'm trying to track him down, he's like in the middle of studying, he's going somewhere, he's like out on a porch with friends. I'm so happy for that, because of COVID, because of the stuff you guys missed. I'm so happy that he's out busy in the world. But when he calls, it's awesome. And I teased him recently because I watched Nick Kroll's comedy thing, and he's like, let me give an impression of everyone here when your mom calls. Fuck.
That's real.
He's like every time.
But I mean,
I don't think you call that much.
I don't. We do a lot of texting.
And
Now we've got
Marco
Polo.
Polo,
Yeah. So
we do a lot of texting, but like going 1 week without calling feels unnatural. But she will catch me in a bad mood or whatever when I'm not like trying to talk, and it'll be like, good, yep, and she'll be like, all right, calling you back. And then when I call, I'll be like, oh, this and this and this. She's like, I think I gotta go, and I'm like, well, I have 3 other things to talk about. Sure, go ahead, I guess.
Awesome. Great.
so funny. Oh, I'm so glad you guys said yes to this. This is a random idea that Kari and I got very excited about when we were in Venice last week. And I'm so glad we made this work, because it was fun to meet you, Peter, and you've lived up to everything your mom said you would. So
cool. And to re-meet you, Liam. I'm sorry, in my mind, I'm in a fog that I was ever even at Da Vinci.
That's totally cool.
Kari, would you like to end?
Sure, that's it for this week's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. And as always, please let us know either in the comments where we post, or you can email us at thethingsweknowpodcast23@gmail.com if you have ideas around your adult relationship with your children. And please consider sharing this with anyone you think might enjoy it.
And that is it for this week. For The Things We Know, we'll be back next week. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.